The Australian Grand Prix has ended under controversial circumstances, and fans are asking for answers. The FIA managed to put itself in the centre of attention yet again, but for all the wrong reasons. After they red flagged the race with just 2 laps remaining, Sainz turned out to be the biggest loser with a suspicious 5-second penalty, and on top of that, the second restart has raised some eyebrows throughout the paddock. Therefore, we're forced to ask, why did the FIA struggle to find common ground with the drivers during the Australian GP? Join us in reviewing the flawed system of the governing body, as well as the drivers' and team principals' take on it. Max Verstappen was able to win his first career Australian GP, but it seems like whenever the Dutchman achieves a milestone, such as winning his 2 championships in the previous 2 years, it's always a controversial manner. Although the race had 3 red flags and 2 standing restarts, with the third one being practically provisional, the FIA has managed to put the sport in a position in which many fans would give up on it. After the first restart of the race, we've seen Russell and Sainz as the biggest losers because they've decided to enter the pit lane under the safety car and didn't think that the race would be flagged in the first place. This isn't what hurt Russell the most, as he had to end his race prematurely due to reliability issues with the W14, something that Mercedes might want to pay more attention to as time goes on, because Stroll wasn't able to finish the previous race due to a similar issue on his Mercedes engine. But that's not the topic of this video, and we're going to talk about the FIA's decisions and why they were made the way they were. George Russell was the first to throw dirt towards the first red flag, which saw Albon lose his rear end and send it to the wall in turn 7. While many think that it's been done out of anger over his decision to pit earlier, it still makes you want to ask the stewards what in the world they were thinking during this race weekend. When talking about his race and the first red flag, Russell added, "I thought the red flag was totally unnecessary. There was obviously quite a bit of gravel on the track, but there was a clear racing line. We've seen it far worse in the past. It's sort of reminiscent of the decision of last week in Saudi to bring out the safety car when the car was totally off the track." But Russell is by far not the only driver that's been left in anger after the FIA has been playing different games with its decisions, and to be completely honest, he's the one that needs to be the least angry due to the fact that he wouldn't have been able to finish the race anyway. On the other hand, there are drivers who could have been and have been severely affected by the governing body's actions, such as Carlos Sainz. The Spaniard has had a tough task in front of him after he shared the same fate with George Russell during the first red flag, as he was forced to cut through the field in order to secure good points for the Maranello team. The fact that he was the only Ferrari driver on the track made it even more complicated for him, but nonetheless he was cruising in P4 and was about to bring good points home in what seemed to be yet another troublesome weekend for Ferrari. Sainz planned to capitalise on the fact that Leclerc had his second DNF in 3 races, and what seemed to be a potential great race for him turned out with Ferrari notching another absolutely shattering record. The Maranello team has scored 26 points in 3 rounds, which is their worst start of the season since the points system changed in 2010. During the second red flag restart, Sainz understeered into Alonso a little by trying to protect his position from Lance Stroll into turn 1, which effectively ruined the 2-time world champion's race. He was left at the back of the pack, and a very interesting thing happened. Alonso didn't slam the driver that hit him from behind during his anger, but the FIA for deciding to do a restart with 2 laps remaining. For this action, Sainz was given a 5-second penalty, and given the fact that there wasn't practically any racing left and the cars were just procedurally going through the checkered flag, Sainz lost his P4 finish. When he was told that a penalty had been given to him, he literally begged his team to urge the stewards to wait and talk to him first and then decide whether his actions were worthy of a penalty or not. But after the FIA was adamant that Sainz was at fault for the actions and that he was the one to blame for the chaos that happened during the second restart, the Spaniard didn't hold back on words, as he went on to add, "I'm not going to speak or comment on it until I go to the stewards and they revert this penalty. It's the biggest disgrace I've seen in the sport for many years, and whatever I'm going to say now, I'd rather not say it. To top this off, the FIA added 2 penalty points to Sainz' super licence for his actions, which only goes to show that if there's one thing the governing body doesn't like, it's being shamed in front of the public by its own drivers. However hurtful it might sound at this point, Sainz was the one to blame for the incident, and although the 5-second penalty was given at a time when there was practically no racing, it could have effectively ruined Alonso's perfect race. Yet the 2-time world champion stood in defence of his compatriot, but the question remains, why did the FIA not want to end things under the safety car or under a red flag? To be quite honest, this is something that no fan wants to witness, and when it needs to be done, it definitely needs to be done. When talking about the rule of the FIA after his car had been spun out by Sainz, Alonso said, "Stupid rule, how the hell can they put a red flag? If there is a start, we go back to original positions like in Silverstone. Car is okay." In 2021, the last race of the season caused tectonic movements in the ways the FIA is now governing races, and the fact that the FIA insists that a race shouldn't end under a safety car or red flag is the common deterrent between the race in Abu Dhabi and the Australian GP this year. That was the way that Verstappen won the championship in 2021, with a fair and shared one-lap racing, and bizarrely enough, that couldn't have been the way that this race ended today. Although the FIA tried to give all the drivers a fair and share piece of racing for 2 laps, which would have been the best mini-sprint we've seen, it resulted in 4 drivers ending their race, and with both Alpine drivers slamming into each other after turn 2. So by trying to create more harmony, the FIA created more chaos for the drivers, something that Verstappen spoke about, saying that the race was a total mess. The stewards found Sainz wholly to blame for the collision, and Martin Brundle, for one, doesn't think that the FIA did a good job here by penalising the smooth operator 5 seconds. The Sky F1 pundit said that this just goes to show how inconsistent the governing body is when it comes to deducting penalties from drivers, and that's something that has been called out by many drivers out there. Apart from the drivers, Toto Wolff was also very critique-oriented towards the governing body, handing out red flags like candy. The Austrian believes that by taking this action, the sport is becoming too much of an entertainment, and we remember that he had a similar attitude when Drive to Survive started to depict the different scenarios, as he thought the sport was turning more and more into the Kardashians. When talking about the red flags, Wolff said, "I'm generally in favour of offering good entertainment, but the rules of the sport are the key DNA. We need to define what a VSC is, what a safety car is, and what a red flag is. I think restarts are great and a great entertainment factor. We just need to understand going forward when a red flag's being put out." Although the red flags gave Hamilton at least some hope that he could win ahead of Verstappen if he was to pull ahead with 2 laps remaining, it's evident that Wolff is an ambassador for the fairness of the sport, and that's something the FIA hasn't really done very frequently in the first 3 races of the season. This means that no matter what, the FIA needs to put its drivers and their needs first, and then the entertainment factor. With that being said, what do you think about the FIA's decision to red flag the race with 2 laps remaining? Do you think it was a smart choice, or do you think that it was done out of pure entertainment? Let us know in the comments below.